This video I am going to discuss about the corrosion of magnesium alloy as well as titanium alloys respectively. Now first about corrosion of magnesium alloy. Magnesium is the most chemically active of the metal used in aircraft constructions and is therefore the most difficult to protect. When a failure in the protective coating does occur, the prompt and complete corrections of the coating failure is imperative if serious structural damage is to be avoided. Magnesium attack is probably the easiest type of corrosion to detect in its early stages. Since magnesium corrosion products occupy several times of the volume of the original magnesium metal destroyed, the beginning of attack shows as a lifting of a paint films and white spots on the magnesium surface. These rapidly develop into snow-like mounds or even white whiskers in the comma. Protection involves the removal of corrosion products, the partial restoration of surface coating by chemical treatment, and a reapplication of protective coatings. Treatment of wrought magnesium sheet and forgings. Magnesium skin attack will usually occur around edges of skin panels, underneath hold-down washers, or in area physically damaged by shearing, drilling, abrasion, or impact. In the skin section can be removed easily. This should be done to assure complete inhibition and treatment. If insulating washers are involved, screws should be loosened at least sufficiently to permit brush treatment of the magnesium under the insulating washer. Complete mechanical removal of corrosion products should be practiced insofar as practicable. Such mechanical cleaning should be limited to the use of stiff hog bristle brushes and similar non-metallic cleaning tools. Particularly if treatment is to be performed under field condition, any entrapment of steel particles from steel wire brushes or steel tools or contaminants of treated surfaces by dirty abrasives can cause more trouble than the initial corrosive attack. Corroded magnesium may generally be treated as follows. Number 1. Clean and strip the paint from the area to be treated. In bracket, paint stripping procedures were discussed earlier in this section. In the earlier video. Number 2. Using a stiff hog bristle brush, break loose and remove as much of the corrosion product as practicable. Steel wire brushes, carborundum abrasives, or steel cutting tools should not be used. Number 3. Treat the corroded area liberally with a chromic acid solution, to which has been added sulfuric acid, and work into pits and crevices by brushing the area while still wet with chromic acid, again using a non-metallic brush. Number 4. Allow the chromic acid to remain in place for 5 to 20 minutes before wiping up the excess with a clean, damp cloth. Do not allow the excess solution to dry and remain on the surface, as paint lifting will be caused by such deposits. Number 5. As soon as the surface are dry, restore the original protective paint. Now, treatment of installed magnesium casting. Magnesium castings in general are more porous and more prone to penetrating attack than wrought magnesium skin. Our treatment is for all practical purposes the same for all magnesium areas. Engine cases, bell cranks, fittings, numerous covers, plates and handles are the most common magnesium castings. When attack occurs on a casting, the earliest practicable treatment is required if dangerous corrosive penetration is to be avoided. In fact, engine cases submerged in salt water overnight can be completely penetrated. If it is at all practicable, parting surfaces should be separated to effectively treat the existing attack and prevent its further progress. The same general treatment sequence in the preceding paragraph for magnesium skin should be followed. If existence removal of corrosion products from a structural casting is involved, a decision from the manufacturers may be necessary to evaluate the adequacy of structural strength remaining. Special structural repair manuals usually include dimensional tolerance limits for critical structural members and should be referred to if any question of safety is involved. The treatment of magnesium alloys from the another text. First is A. Mechanical removal of corrosion. Magnesium is one of the most active metals commonly used in aircraft construction, but because of its excellent weight to strength ratio, designers will accept its corrosiveness. Magnesium alloys do not naturally form a protective film on their surface the way aluminum does, so special care must be taken that the chemically or electrolytically deposited film is not destroyed. Magnesium corrosion occupies more space than the metal and it will raise the paint, or it forms between skin lap joints. It will swell the joints. When corrosion is found on a magnesium structure, all traces must be removed and the surface treated to inhibit further corrosion. Since magnesium is anodic to almost all of the commonly used aircraft structural metals, corrosion should not be removed with metallic tools. They will leave contaminants embedded in the metal and will cause further damage. Stiff non-metallic brushes or nylon scrubbers may be used to remove corrosion from the surface or from the pits. Deep pits must be cut out with sharp carbide tipped cutting tools or scrapers. Carborundum wheels or paper must not be used because of their tendency to contaminate the surface and cause galvanic corrosion. If abrasive blasting is done, use only glass beads which have been used for nothing but magnesium. Scale or residue left in the abrasive from other metals can embedded in the magnesium and cause further damage. Now B. Surface treatment. After all of the corrosion possible has been removed from the surface, a chromic acid pickling solution which contains MIL-M-3171A type 1 in bracket DOW number 1 should be applied. A satisfactory substitute for the solution may be made by adding about 50 drops of sulfuric acid to a gallon of 10% chromic acid solution. Apply this to the surface with rags and allow it to stand for about 10 or 15 minutes. Then rinse it thoroughly with hot water. A treatment which forms a more protective film is a dichromate conversion treatment. Dough number 7 which conforms to MIL M3171A type 4. This solution is applied to the metal and allowed to stand until a golden brown oxide film forms uniformly on the surface. Rinse the surface with cold water and dry it with an air blast. The oxide film is extremely soft when it is wet and it must be protected from excessive wiping or touching until it dries and hardens. This film is continuous and protects the magnesium surface from corrosion by excluding all electrolyte from the surface. Like aluminum alloy, magnesium can also have a film deposited on its surface by electrolytic methods. Anodizing magnesium by the Dough number 17 process produces a hard surface oxide film which serves as a good base for further protection that can be provided by a good coat of paint. Magnesium is such an active metal, and magnesium skins are usually so thin that it is absolutely essential that only the proper solution and proper procedures be used for corrosion treatment. Because of this, rather than mixing your own pickling and conversion coating solution, you should use prepared chemicals meeting the appropriate MIL specifications, and you must follow the manufacturer's recommendation in detail. About the magnesium alloy from the another text, instructions for cleaning by immersion in caustic soda or chromic acid are given in another leaflet than BL/4-2. It is given in leaflet BL/7-3. Sometimes pickling in a 5 to 10% solution of concentrated nitric acid in water is recommended for castings and parts which are not machined to close tolerances. The electrolytic fluoride process mentioned in leaflet BL/4-3 will also remove corrosion products and has the further advantage that the fluoride film created on the surface is to a certain degree corrosion resistant, which I am going to read. Chemical treatments for magnesium alloys are covered in leaflet BL/7-3, which I have mentioned. The immersion process gives in that leaflet are all chromating processes, but local repairs to protective films can be affected by the Allochrome 1200 chromate conversion by swab method. Another method of protecting these alloys is by electrolytic fluoride method known as fluoridizing. This involves in anodizing the component in a solution of ammonium fluoride. It is particularly effective method for the removal of molding contaminants and for restoring corrosion resistance, which may have been reduced by process such as salt or grit blasting. The process consists of applying AC current when the items are immersed in the solution, the voltage being gradually increased to a value of 100 volts. The current falls proportionality as impurities are removed from the surface of the magnesium alloy and a thin coating of magnesium fluoride is formed. The coating has a protective value about equal to that of chromate film and forms a good paint base to obtain satisfactory results. Full details of the process should be obtained from the manufacturer. Treatment of titanium and titanium alloys. Attack on titanium surface is generally difficult to detect. Titanium is by nature lightly corrosion resistant, but it may show deterioration from the presence of salt deposits and metal impurities, particularly at high temperature. Therefore, the use of steel wool, iron scrapers or steel brushes for cleaning or for the removal of corrosion from the titanium parts is prohibited. If titanium surfaces require cleaning, hand polishing with aluminum polish or a mild abrasive is permissible. If fiber brushes only are used and if the surface is treated following cleaning with a suitable solution of sodium dichromate, wipe the treated surface with dry cloths to remove excess solution, but do not use a water rinse. This sequence only protection of dissimilar metal contacts. Certain metals are subject to corrosion when placed in contact with other metal. This is commonly referred to as an electrolyte or dissimilar metal corrosion. Contact of different bare metals creates an electrolytic action when moisture is present. An electrolytic action when moisture is creates an electrolytic action when moisture is present. If this moisture is salt water, the electrolytic action is accelerated. The result of dissimilar metal contact is oxidation in decomposition of one or both metals. The chart shown in figure lists the metal combination requiring a protective separator. The separating materials may be metal primer, aluminum tape, washers, grease, or sealant depending on the metals involved. Contacts not involving magnesium. All dissimilar joints not involving magnesium are protected by the application of minimum of 2 coats of zinc chromate primer in addition to normal primer requirements. Primer is applied by brush or spray and allowed to air dry 6 hours between coats. Now, contacts involving contacts involving magnesium. To prevent corrosion between dissimilar metal joints in which magnesium alloy is involved, each surface is insulated as follows. At least 2 coats of zinc chromate are applied to each surface. Next, a layer of pressure sensitive vinyl tape 0.003 inch thick is applied smoothly and firmly enough to prevent air bubbles and wrinkles. To avoid creepback, the tape is not stretched during application. When the thickness of the tape interferes with the assembly of parts where relative motion exists between parts or where service temperature above 250 degree Fahrenheit are anticipated, the use of tape is eliminated and extra coat minimum of 3 of primer are applied. Now, corrosion limits. Corrosion, however slight, is damage. Therefore, corrosion damage is classified under the 4 standard types as is any other damage. These types are: number 1, negligible damage; number 2, damage repairable by patching; number 3, damage repairable by insertion; and number 4, damage necessitating replacement of parts. The term negligible as used here does not imply that little or nothing should be done. The corroded surface should be cleaned, treated and painted as appropriate. Negligible damage generally is corrosion which has scarred or eaten away the surface protective coats and begun to edge the metal. Now, corrosion damage extending to classification of repairable by patching and repairable by insertion should be repaired in accordance with the applicable structural repair manual. When corrosion damage exceeds the damage limits to the extent that repair is not possible, the component or structure should be replaced. Processes and materials used in corrosion control. Metal finishing. Aircraft parts are almost always given some types of surface finish by the manufacturer. The main purpose is to provide corrosion resistance. However, surface finishes may also be applied to increase wear resistance or to provide a suitable base for paint. In most instances, the original finishes cannot be restored in the field due to non-availability of equipment or other limitations. However, an understanding of the various types of metal finishes is necessary if they are to be properly maintained in the field, and the partial restoration techniques used in corrosion control are to be effective. Now, surface preparation. Original surface treatment for steel parts usually include a cleaning treatment to remove all traces of dirt, oil, grease, oxides and moisture. This is necessary to provide an effective bond between the metal surface and the final finish. The cleaning process may be either mechanical or chemical. In mechanical cleaning, the following methods are employed: wire brush, steel wool, emery cloth, sandblasting or vapor blasting. Chemical cleaning is preferred over mechanical since none of the base metal is removed by cleaning. There are various chemical processes now in use, and the type used will depend on the material being cleaned and the type of foreign matter being removed. Steel parts are pickled to remove scale, rust or other foreign matter, particularly before plating. The pickling solution can be either muriate, or in bracket hydrochloric or sulfuric acid. Cost-wise, sulfuric acid is preferable, but muriatic acid is more effective in removing certain types of scale. The pickling solution is kept in a ware tank and is usually heated by means of a steam coil. Parts not be electroplated after pickling are immersed in lime bath to neutralize the acid from the pickling solution. Electrocleaning is another type of chemical cleaning used to remove grease, oil, or organic matter. In the cleaning process, the metal is suspended in a hot alkaline solution containing special wetting agents, inhibitors, and materials to provide the necessary electrical conductivity. An electric current is then passed through the solution in a manner similar to that used in electroplating. Aluminium and magnesium parts are also cleaned by using some of the foregoing methods. Blast cleaning is not applicable to thin aluminum sheets, particularly alkali. Steel grids are not used on aluminum or corrosion-resistant metals. Polishing, buffing, and coloring of metal surfaces play a very important part in the finishing of metal surfaces. Polishing and buffing operations are sometimes used when preparing a metal surface for electroplating, and all three operations are used when the metal surface requires a high luster finish. From the another text, external finishing of aircraft. Finishing schemes for metal skin aircraft are selected to provide the maximum of corrosion protection with the minimum weight of paint. Adherence of finish effect on aircraft performance and appearance are also important. Therefore, verification of the scheme used should be obtained from the relevant aircraft manufacturer. Now, in this, number 1, surface finishes. Cellulose or synthetic finishes give satisfactory protection if applied on top of suitable primers. After pre-treatment, the metal surface should be finished in accordance with a recognized scheme. For the best result, it is advisable to use compatible primers, undercoats, and finishing coats from the same manufacturer. Polyurethane and acrylic finishes are now widely used in some modern aircraft, whilst others utilize epoxy paint and epoxide primers. Now, number 2, retouching local areas. It is not always necessary to clean down to the bare metal before touching up a damaged finish, but this is advisable if there is any evidence of flaking or blistering. The area should be flattened down with wet sandpaper or with pumice powder applied with a damp cloth. The edges of the area should be feather edged. If stopping is required, the stopper should be applied with a knife. The priming coat should then be sprayed on using a round instead of a fan spray, and spraying from the feather edge inwards. The same technique should be used for finishing coat, for which it is advisable to adjust the spray gun to give a fine spray than usual. Now 3. Experience has shown that external paint schemes reduces maintenance labor and enhance the appearance of the aircraft. Stowing is carried out where practicable, but the paint material used includes the latest epoxy polyamide will be suited to air drying touch-up operations which might be necessary from time to time. Most paint materials are described in Ministry of Defence specification DTD 827, 4x5, 5567, 5580 and 5599. Now number 6. It is internal finishing of aircraft. The interiors of wing, fuselage, etc. are usually protected by at least one coat of zinc chromate or general purpose primer. This should be applied by spray, care being taken to ensure that all corners and enclosed spaces are adequately covered, where greater resistance to abrasion is required. A cellulose or synthetic finish is applied on top of the primer. Special additional treatment are given to areas subject to excessive contaminations. Now, in this number 1, some aircraft manufacturers ensure that every component receives a full protective treatment, including painting. At the detail stage, paint is applied to clean pre-treated metal surface and stove to ensure the best adhesion and durability. This finish has good resistance to knocks and abrasives, and the parts are thus protected from damage during assembly. In assembly, paint and interfering compounds is present in all joints, giving enhanced protection from corrosion and fretting. Now 2. In 6, it is 2. Aluminum alloy parts are often protected by the Alochrome 1200 process, which has no deleterious effect on the fatigue properties of the metal and gives a good bond for paint adhesion. Steel components are cadmium plated and then given chromate passivation, which improves the paint adhesion and provides increased corrosion resistance. The paint treatment is often an epoxy or polyamide system using a chromate pigmented primer and a gloss finish, which is suited to air drying touch-up operations. Areas subject to site contamination may receive chemical cleaning or chemical protection and primer painting only, whilst areas contaminated by water, oil, etc. may receive an additional process of hard gloss finishing paint. Those areas subject to attack from acid or corrosive fluids are given a further treatment of epoxy nylon lacquer. Now, number 3. In 6, some manufacturers apply a water displacing corrosion inhibitor to supplement the finishing scheme, and similar materials may also be used where permitted. In cases where interior paint work has been damaged, these inhibitors are volatile liquids which are sprayed or brushed on the surfaces to be treated. The liquid carrier then evaporates, leaving a waxy film on the surface. The inhibitor penetrates small cavities and between fraying surface and thus prevents the ingress of moisture. Now, in this 3, there is 1. These inhibitors are usually slightly toxic and the appropriate precautions should be observed during their application. In addition, corrosion inhibitors may contain flammable components and may present a fire hazard when mixed with oxygen or subjected to high temperature. All safety precautions recommended by the manufacturer should therefore be observed. Electroplating. Electroplating is the process of transferring metal from the object to another by chemical and electrical means. Several reasons for applying plated coatings are: number 1, to protect the base metal (metal being plated) against corrosion. Tin, zinc, nickel and cadmium are some of the metal used to form a protective coating on another metal by electrolytic action. Number 2, to protect the base metal against wear caused by abrasion or fretting corrosion. Chromium plating is extensively used for wear resistance on gauges, dies, oleo pistons and cylinder barrels. Nickel plating can also be used for this purpose. Now, number 3, to produce and retain a desired appearance (color and luster) as well as improve resistance to tarnish, gold, nickel or chromium plating can be used in this application. Number 4, to protect a base metal against some special chemical reaction. For example, copper plating is sometimes used to prevent certain parts of the component manufactured of steel from absorbing carbon during case hardening. Now, number 5, to increase the dimension of a part. This process, known as building up, may be applied to parts accidentally made undersized or to worn parts. Nickel or chromium plating is commonly used for this purpose. Now number 6, to serve as a base for further plating operations, reduce buffing cost and ensure bright deposits of nickel or nickel and chromium. Copper is commonly used for this purpose. All electroplating processes are basically similar. The equipment used consists of a tank or bath containing a liquid solution called an electrolyte, a control panel and a source of direct current. When a current is passed through the circuit, the plating material is the positive electrode or anode of the circuit, the part on which the plating is deposited in the negative electrode or cathode of the circuit. The source of power, anode, cathode and electrolyte from the plating's electrical circuit and cause tiny particles of the plating material to be deposited on the surface of the part being plated. The process is continued until a plating of the required thickness is obtained. The electrolyte, anode, cathode and current setting will vary with the type of plating material being used. Some plating operations do not use anodes of the metal being deposited but obtain the metal from the electrolyte alone. Chromium plating is an example of this type plating. Lead anodes instead of chromium anodes, which are unsatisfactory, are employed to complete the electrical circuit. The chromium for the plating comes from the chromic acid in the electrolyte. Next is metal spraying. Metal spraying or metallizing is the surface application of molten metal on any solid base material. This we have all discussed earlier also, but I am giving you from the another text. It is possible to spray aluminum, cadmium, copper, nickel, steel or any of several processes used primarily to spray a coat of pure aluminum on steel parts to improve their corrosion resistance. The base material may be roughened usually by some sandblasting and preferably clean in order for the sprayed metal to adhere to the surface of base material. Metal spraying equipment consists of a supply of oxygen and an acetylene pipe to a spray gun which ends in a nozzle. At this point they can be ignited as in welding torch. A supply of compressed air is also piped to a spray gun. This compressed air operates a feeding mechanism that draws the wire through the spray gun. The wire is melted by the hot acetylene flame and is thrown against the surface being metallized by the compressed air. Now chemical treatments. First is parco-luberizing. Parco-luberizing is the chemical treatment for iron and steel parts which converts the surface to a non-metallic while absorptive phosphate coating. It is designed primarily to reduce wear on moving parts. The process of a modification of parkerizing and consists of a pre-clearing treatment in which vapor decreasing acid pickle or spray pickle is used, followed by a 15-minute dip in a solution of water and 10% by volume of parco-lubrite. This is followed by a water rinse and a dip in water soluble oil. The phosphate surface soaks up oil and retain it. Anodizing. Anodizing is the most common surface treatment of non-clad aluminum alloy surfaces. The aluminum alloy sheet or casting is the positive pole in an electrolytic bath in which chromic acid or other oxidizing agent produces an aluminum oxide film of the metal surface. Aluminum oxide is naturally protective and anodizing merely increases the thickness and density of the natural oxide film. When this coating is damaged in service, it can only be partially restored by chemical surface treatments. Therefore, any processing of anodized surfaces, including corrosion removal, should avoid unnecessary destructions of the oxide film. The anodized coating provides excellent resistance to corrosion. The coating is soft and easily scratched, making it necessary to use extreme caution when handling it prior to coating it with primer. Aluminium wool nylon webbing impregnated with aluminium oxide abrasive or fiber brushes are the improved tools for cleaning anodized surfaces. The use of steel wool, steel wire brushes or harsh abrasive materials on any aluminium surfaces is prohibited. Producing a warped wire brush finishing by any means is also prohibited. Otherwise, anodized surfaces are treated in much the same manner as other aluminium finishes. In addition to its corrosion resistant quality, the anodic coating is also an excellent bond for paint. In most cases, parts are primed and painted as soon as possible after anodizing. The anodic coating is a poor conductor of electricity. Therefore, if parts require bonding, the coating is removed when the bonding wire is to be attached. Alkyd surfaces that are to be left unpainted require no anodic treatment. However, if the alkyd surface is to be painted, it is usually anodized to provide a bond for the paint. Now, next is alloyizing. Alloyizing is a simple chemical treatment for aluminium alloys to increase their corrosion resistance and to improve their paint bonding qualities. Because of its simplicity, it is rapidly replacing anodizing in aircraft work. The process consists of pre-cleaning with an acidic or alkaline metal cleaner that is applied by either dipping or spraying. The parts are then rinsed with fresh water under pressure for 10 to 15 seconds. After thorough rinsing, alloying is applied by dipping, spraying or brushing. A thin hard coating results which ranges in color from light blush green with a slight iridescence on copper-free alloys to an olive green or on copper-bearing alloys. The alloying is first rinsed with clear, cold or warm water for a period of 15 to 30 seconds. An additional 10 to 15 second rinse is then given in a deoxylite bath. This bath is to be counteract alkaline material and to make the alloyized aluminum surface slightly acid on drying. Now, chemical surface treatment and inhibitors. As previously described, aluminum and magnesium alloys in particulars are protected originally by a variety of surface treatments. Steel may have been parcolorized or otherwise oxidized on the surface during manufacture. Most of the coatings can be restored by processes which are completely impractical in the field, but corroded areas which such protective films have been destroyed require some type of treatment prior to refinishing. The following inhibiting materials are particularly effective in the field treatment of aluminum, are beneficial to bare magnesium and are of some value even on bare steel parts. The labels on the containers of surface treatment chemicals will provide warnings if a material is toxic or flammable. However, the label might not be large enough to accommodate a list of all the possible hazards, which may ensure if the materials are mixed with incompatible substances. For example, some chemicals used in surface treatments will react violently if inadvertently mixed with paint thinners. Chemical surface treatment materials must be handled with extreme care and mixed exactly according to directions. Chromic acid inhibitor. A 10% solution by weight of chromic acid activated by a small amount of sulfuric acid is particularly effective in treating exposed or corroded aluminum surfaces. It may also be used to treat corroded magnesium. This treatment tends to restore the protective oxide coating on the metal surface. Such treatment must be followed by regular paint finishes as soon as practicable and never later than the same day as the later chromic and acid treatment. Chromium trioxide flake is a powerful oxidizing agent and a fairly strong acid. It must be stored away from organic solvents and other combustibles. Wiping clothes used in chromic acid pickups should either be rinsed through thoroughly after use or disposed of. Sodium dichromate solution, a less active mixture for surface treatment of aluminum, is a solution of sodium dichromate and chromic acid. Entrapped solution of these mixtures are likely to corrode metal surfaces than chromic acid inhibitors solutions. Chemical surface treatment. Several commercial activated chromate acid mixtures are available under specification MIL-C 5541 for field treatment of damaged or corroded aluminum surfaces. Precautions should be taken to make sure that sponges or cloths used are thoroughly rinsed to avoid a possible fire hazard after drying. Surface treatment from another text. It's a very small paragraph. You have to understand this as because I have given more about this. Now, a number of surface treatment of metals have been developed to reduce or eliminate corrosion. Treatments for aluminum alloys include anodizing, iridite, and treatments with chromic acid and sodium dichromate. All these processes provide a protective film, and parts so treated must be handled carefully to avoid damaging the film. The aviation maintenance technician is not usually required to apply the more complicated treatments because they require equipment not generally available in the field. Usually such treatments are applied by manufacturer and large overall basis. Magnesium is usually treated with a chromic pickle or sodium dichromate process. These processes produce an excellent protective film that can be repaired by brushing chromic acid solution on damaged areas. Steel parts are protected by cadmium plating, chrome plating, or by phosphate processes such as parkaging, bonderizing, parcoluberizing, or groundizing. These processes effectively protect the surface from oxidation, and the parts may be painted over after preparation as specified by the manufacturer of the product applied. Also go for this repair of corroded parts. The repair of parts that are affected by corrosion are not rendered unserviceable. It's simply a matter of moving the existing corrosion products and applying coating of finish that will prevent further corrosion. One must be taken to assure that the parts are not damaged by the removal process and that the correct type of finish is applied. Parts made of carbon or alloy, steel, and not highly stressed can be cleaned with buffers, wire brushes, sandblasting, steel wool, or abrasive paper. If corrosion remains in pits and crevices, it may be necessary to use chemical inhibitors to prevent corrosion. Unpainted steel parts are often coated with rust inhibiting oil or greases. Steel parts that are highly stressed must not have appreciable material removing during cleaning and must not have pits or appreciable surface damage. Parts that are satisfactory after corrosion removal can be primed and painted in accordance with the original finish. When removing corrosion from the aluminum parts, the use of steel or wire brushes, steel wool, emery cloth, or other harsh abrasives should be avoided. steel brushes and steel wool are likely to leave metal particles embedded in the surface, and this will lead to electrolyte corrosion. Mild abrasive or polish melting specification MIL-P6888 can be used on clad aluminum alloy, but must not be used for cleaning anodized alloys. The anodized film is so thin that it can be removed by polishing. When it is necessary to remove severe corrosion that cannot be removed by polishing, a number of chemical cleaners are available. One such process utilizes a 10% solution of chromic acid to which a small amount of sulfuric acid has been added. This solution can be brushed on with a stiff bristle brush and allowed to remain for more than 5 minutes. If the existing corrosion is removed, the solution can be rinsed off with water. The clean surface should be repainted with a few hours after cleaning. In an anodized film has been partially removed from an aluminum alloy surface, a protective coatings can be partially restored by treating with a chromic acid solution. After treatment, the part should be primed and painted as soon as possible. Structural aluminum alloy parts that have suffered severe intergranular corrosion may usually be replaced because of the loss of strength in the parts. Sometimes a small amount of intergranular corrosion can be removed from the outer surface of a part, and if there is no evidence of additional penetration, the part can be treated chemically and then refinished. Since magnesium is the most chemically active of the metals employed in aircraft, it is also the most critical with respect to corrosion. Magnesium parts are chemically treated to produce a film coating that prevents corrosion. However, this film can be scratched or worn off with the result then corrosion starts immediately if any moisture is present. When the protective coating on magnesium is damaged, it should immediately be repaired by chemical treating with a 10% chromic acid solution to which has been added a small amount of sulfuric acid. This acid can be obtained in the form of a lead acid battery electrolyte. The recommended amount of the for the chromic acid solution is 20 drops of the electrolyte to 1 gallon of the solution. The solution should be brushed on the clean magnesium part and allowed to remain for 10 to 20 minutes. Testing protective treatments. The efficacy of a protective treatment depends on its nature, its adhesion to the surface of the basis metal, its thickness, its uniformity, and its chemically stability. In many cases, the only guarantee of satisfactory protection lies in close control of pre-treatment and application of finish plus the general appearance of the completed treatment. But sometimes it is necessary to test the treated part or an equivalent test piece to ensure that the specified properties have been obtained. It is therefore advisable to consult the relevant aircraft manufacturer for the preferred methods. Now in number 1, chemical treatments. There is no simple and reliable test for chemically produced films, since they are usually too thin to permit measurements of the thickness of deposit by checking the gauge. Parts on which phosphate films have been produced should be inspected for color. A finely crystalline gray surface is required, as coarse or sparkling films indicate inadequate cleaning of wrong bath compositions. Chromate films on magnesium alloy are judged by their color, explained as in leaflet BL/7-3. Now in this number 2, anodic treatment for aluminum alloy. Leaflet BL/7-1 gives 2 practical methods of testing anodic films, that is the methyl bialode test for sealing and the electrical potential test. The average thickness of anodic films can be checked by The method given in British Standard 1615, in which test piece with a surface area of not less 2 centimeters square, or in bracket 5 inch square, is anodized and then steeped in the boiling solution of phosphoric acid and chromic acid in distilled water. The test piece should be immersed until constant weight is obtained, the loss of weight being taken as the weight of the anodic film. Note: eddy current instruments are available and can be utilized to engage anodic film. Now 3 of 4. Coating thickness measurement. The thickness of conducting or non-conducting coating on ferrous or non-ferrous bases can be measured using basic eddy current methods. For this, you have to see the leaflet BL/8-8. Although measurements become difficult where the conductivity of the coating and base metal are similar. For the NDT, I will be giving you a new video. When measuring thin coatings, it is recommended that equipment designed especially for coating thickness measurements should be used. Now number 4 of 4. Electroplated coatings. The British Non-Ferrous Metal Research Association has devised a standard test for the inspection of electrodeposited methods coating. The BNF jet test is for local thickness measurement and has the advantage over other chemical methods in that it gauges the thickness at any desired point. An adhesion test for the detection of local non-adherence of metal coatings given in the BS 1224 Appendix C and is summarized in paragraph 4.42 of this only. Now 4.41. The BNF jet test. The apparatus for conducting test is illustrated in figure. The separating funnel should be filled with a reagent solution appropriate to the nature of the metal, suitable for solution for testing. Cadmium and zinc coatings are given below. The test should be made as follows, in which number A, the article to be tested should be clamped so that the surface under test is at an angle of about 45 degree to the horizontal and about 6 mm, that is half an inch below the tip of the jet. Now B, jet test solutions for cadmium and zinc coatings are we are giving coatings of cadmium and zinc. So first we will go for the ammonium nitrate. So we will take cadmium as 17.5 gram and zinc 70 gram. Now N/1 hydrochloric acid, that means 17.5 ml cadmium and 70 ml zinc. Distill water to produce 1 liter cadmium and 1 liter zinc. Now C, the tap should be opened and simultaneously a stop clock should be started. At the end of 5 to 10 seconds, the tap should be closed and the clock stopped simultaneously and without moving the specimen. The test piece should be examined for penetration. D, the process in C should be repeated until the first sign of penetration is seen below the jet. The total time of impingement is taken as a guide for a further test in which the reagent is allowed to run continuously until the end point is nearly reached. E, the temperature of the solution and the total time for penetration are the data from which the thickness is calculated. The time required for a particular penetration at the temperature of the test should be obtained from curves applied by the manufacturer of the test apparatus, and the total time of penetration should be divided by this time. Now 4.4.2, test for determination of adhesion. An area of 6 cm or in bracket 1 inch square of the plated surface should be rapidly and firmly rubbed for 15 seconds with the smooth edge of a metal implement such as copper coin the pressure being sufficient to burnish the film at every stroke without cutting into it. If inspection then shows no detachment of the deposit, the adhesion is satisfactory. A blister which grows with the rubbing indicator poor adhesion, splitting and peeling of the deposits shows it to be inferior quality. Now 4.5 Organic finishes. The standard method of testing the corrosion resistant properties of paint, varnish, lacquer and related products is by means of the salt spray test specified in method number 24 of Ministry of Defence specification DFF 1053. The apparatus for making this test is shown in the figure. It consists of a solution it consists of a glass tank with a close fitting lid in which a salt mist is produced by spraying the test solution through an atomizer. Test panels, the preparation of which is given in detail in method number 2 of the specification, are painted with finish under test and are then supported on non-metallic supports with their test pieces. Upwards, this should be approximately 15 inches to the vertical in the tank so that they will be evenly coated with droplets of solutions, but the spray must be prevented by a baffle from impinging directly on the test faces. The salt solution drained from the panel should not be recirculated. The composition of the solution should be as follows: calcium sulfate CaSO4 1.3 gram, magnesium chloride MgCl 2.6 gram, magnesium sulfate MgSO4 1.7 gram, sodium chloride NaCl 21.4 gram, water distilled to 1000 ml. Test panels are normally exposed to periods of 10 days, at the end of which period they should be removed, washed in running water and dried with absorbent paper. Any deterioration in the paint film should then be noted, after which the strip 150 mm into 50 mm, that is in brackets 6 inches by 2 inches, should be cleaned off with a suitable paint remover to permit inspection of the underlying metal for corrosion. Now note, when required, the thickness of paint coats can be gauged by using the electrodes of a capacitance type proximity meter. This method of applicable whether the base is ferrous or non-ferrous. LD current in bracket for non-ferrous bases and magnetic for in bracket for ferrous bases. Thickness meters are now in use. They are not greatly affected by permeability or curvature of the base material and may be used on organic or metallic coatings. Now, assessment of corrosion damage. After removing paint, grease and corrosion products, the affected parts should be examined to determine whether their strength has been loosened beyond permissible limit. Pitting may cause local stress concentration, which may seriously impair both the static and the dynamic strength of the thin section with surface corrosion. Without causing pitting can lower the fatigue strength of load-bearing members. Cleaning operations often cause an appreciable reduction in cross-sectional area, which must always be considered when evaluating the decrease of strength. 4.1 note. There is a note. A corrosive attack on a structural member will cause a reduction in strength out of all proportions to the reductions in thickness of the member. This should be borne in mind at all times when assessing corrosion damage, and particularly when light gauge construction is involved, such as pressurized skin structure. Now 4.1 skin panels. Corrosion damage to aircraft skin should be classified as negligible or repairable according to the extent, depth, loading and location of the damage. It is not possible to give a general rule for classification based on the percentage reduction of skin gauge or the number of pits per unit area, as the load distribution through the affected panels must be considered. It is therefore essential to consult the approved repair scheme for the aircraft concerned. Some general guidance on the assessment and rectification of damage is given in the following paragraphs. It must be appreciated, however, that all previous corrosion rectification must be taken into consideration. Now 4.1.1. If no pronounced pitting or roughening of a skin is evident after the removal of corrosion products, it is usually satisfactory to reprotect the part by applying the appropriate finishes scheme, in which you have to go to see the leaflet BL/4/3, which I have read next time or make another video. Now 4.1.2. Skin panels which have a rough and pitted surface after the corrosion products have been removed should be smoothed down with fine grade wetted sandpaper. The minimum reduction of cross-sectional area consistent with the blending out of a jagged pit should be the aim. After smoothing, the minimum skin thicknesses in the affected region should be computed by measuring the depths of the deepest depressions. A method of mounting a dial test indicator for use as a depth gauge, as illustrated in figure. Note in this, where access is difficult, radiological and or ultrasound examination techniques. For this I will go in NDT, a separate video, are often prescribed to determine the presence of extent of a corrosive attack. In some instances, however, such as at laying surface of stringers to the panel, dismantling of specified parts of the structure has been found necessary as the only means of ensuring adequate inspection. Now 4.1.3. If the damage exceeds the general limits specified by the manufacturer as negligible, but it is not true to be of such a severe nature as to warrant renewal of the whole panel affected, the manufacturer may in some instances issue a repair scheme whereby by original strength of the panel can be restored by the addition of local reinforcement. 4.1.4. If the smoothing done of corrosion damage would reduce the thickness of skin panels or similar components beyond permissible limits, they should be renewed. During removal, the condition of rivets and fairing wires should be examined. If these show signs of corrosion, repairs will be necessary over a wide area than that indicated by the extent of the surface damage. Note: for guidance on repairs to metal aircraft structure, reference should be made to another video or my forthcoming video. Now number 4.2, load bearings member. The effects of corrosion on the strength of main loading bearing members can be serious. It has been clearly established that the fatigue life of wing spars can be drastically shortened by corrosive attack, and these members should therefore receive the most careful attention during the periodic inspection. Now in this 4.2.1, the inspection of spars is often rendered difficult because of limited access to the interior of the wire structure, and because portion of the spar is obscured by electrical cable installation, fuel pipes, control mechanism, etc. Special optical aids to facilitate inspection, such as those outlined in the coming video of mine, to detect corrosion and after its removal to assess the damage it has caused. Areas affected by fittings should be checked for cracks by the penetrant method, which I have earlier also described, that I will be going for the separate video for the NDT, non-destructive test. Now 4.22, in which I will give every test to examine all those flaws, defect and other things related to it. Some serious causes of spar corrosion should be responded to the manufacturer of the aircraft. If minor corrosion is discovered, rectification should be possible in accordance with the approved repair manual for the aircraft. Now 4.2.3, when specified in the appropriate publication or at the other times at the discretion of the inspector, a selection of the main assembly board should be removed and examined for sign of corrosions. The aircraft structures must be adequately supported to prevent strain and distortion before the bolts are removed. Before replacing assembly bolt, they should be MagnaFlex tested. Again, this is an NDT which is for further videos, and the bolt holes should be carefully inspected for evidence of attack of surrounding material. If cadmium has been removed from the bolts, they should be replaced before replacement. And all times jointing compounds should be applied immediately before insertion in accordance with appropriate instructions. Note: the inspection of bolt holes is a matter of great importance, but often of unusual difficulty. Pits or cracks tends to be concealed by corrosion products, which are forced into them as the bolt is extracted. If the hole is rimmed before inspection, the rimming action tends to close the edges of cracks. The hole should therefore be inspected both before and rimming and after rimming. In some cases, satisfactory result may be obtained by cleaning the hole with a round bristle brush using the mixture of white spirit and naphtha recommended in paragraph above, which I have mentioned. After cleaning, it may be possible to adapt the penetrant dye or fluorescent method of detection. This is also one of the NDT method to test the materials of an aircraft to the particular job using the endoscope or a light probe in the bore of the hole. The eddy current method of examining bolt holes is effective and is often used where inspection by optical means is impracticable. Now 4.3, tubular members. Welded steel or aluminum alloy tubes used in aircraft construction are usually thin-walled and can therefore be seriously weakened by corrosion. May remain undetected until the tube is to be weakened that failure occurs. For this reason, it is essential that tubes are protected internally during assembly and sealed to prevent accumulation of moisture. Open-ended tubes should be protected internally and externally by the same method. Now 4.3.1. There is no completely reliable methods of determining whether a sealed tube is corroded internally, short of cutting it open, but ultrasonic and radiological method of examination will give an indication of reduction of thickness. Now 4.3.2. During assembly or after repair, the interior of sealed tubes should be flushed with a protective material, and reference should be made to the manufacturer for the appropriate one to be used. Some such corrosion inhibitors are not linseed oil, lanolin or zinc chromate pigmented lanolin to the specification DTD 279 being particularly suitable. The flushing liquids is normally introduced through small holes for which the appropriate design approved should first be obtained drilled in the tubing. Surplus liquid should be drained off through suitable drain holes. It may be possible as an alternative to remove an existing bolt or rivet, ensuring that the hole is not enlarged. When sufficient liquid has been introduced to give a good coating, the hole should be plugged to exclude air or moisture. Notes 1. If for any reason the above procedures cannot be carried out, the danger of corrosion will be greatly reduced if the enclosed air is dry and the tube is effectively scaled against the ingress of moisture. The interiors of steel tubes can be further safeguarded by the introduction of a vapor phase inhibitor marketed in powder form. Vapor inhibitors consist of stable organic nitric compounds which release corrosion inhibiting vapor at a slow rate. The vapor will prevent corrosion even when oxygen and moisture are both present. In notes, during maintenance and overall, radiographical methods of examination, which I am mentioning earlier also that I will go for the NDT, are sometimes used for detection of damage in tube of relatively thin cross section. This method will show changes in sectional thickness when corrosion is present and with the correct technique. Some idea of the depth of the corrosion attack can be obtained. Similarly, in some instance where tubular members are made of heavy gauge ultrasonic methods of examination will give an indication of local reduction in thickness. Now, what happens wherever there is this type of methods for detection and all this comes, we will go for the further videos, as I have earlier mentioned also in the video of NDT. Now, general 4.4 general components which are not part of the structure can usually be removed for anti-corrosive treatment if items such as pumps, valves and electrical equipment are found to be corroded. Rectification appropriate to the particular material and its duty should be made. Reference to the relevant manufacturer's publication for the aircraft concerned should be treated at all times. Some points of special interest are listed below. Now 4.4.1 Doped fabrics in contact with painted metal surface sometimes cause the paint to deteriorate with the result that metal is attacked. The metal should be protected by the application of a drop resisting paint on top of the normal finish. 4.4.2 A method of protecting seaplane floats is to the bags of potassium or sodium dichromate to the keelson so that the dichromate permeates the bulge water. 4.4.3 Light alloy tanks containing leaded fuels should normally be protected by corrosion inhibitor cartridges. Typically, these cartridges consist of strontium chromate or calcium chromate tablets containing in a linen bag. It is requirement with such cartridges that the linen bag should be thoroughly wetted with water before installation and after tank repair operations. 4.4.4 When locking wire is used, it should be of a material which will not cause electrochemical reaction with the part locked. 4.4.5 Control cables should be protected after installation and at intervals by application of rust preventing compounds, lanolin resins compounds or preparation containing zinc chromate are sometimes recommended. This should be diluted and applied so as to ensure penetration of the compound between the strands of the cable whilst avoiding an excess accumulation which would cause stiffness of controls in fairleads and pulleys. Note: British standard W9 and W11 call for lubricant to be applied during the spinning of cables. It is therefore important when cleaning these cables not to wash out the lubricant by saturating the cables with a grease solvent. Now 4.4.6 During assembly and repair, the dissimilar metals should be insulated from each other unless there are overriding structural and functional considerations. Corrosion inhibiting sealing compounds should be applied wet between all fairing surfaces immediately prior to assembly. Solution containing zinc or barium chromate are generally used. Most of the proprietary materials and processes are to be found in specification DTD 900. The compound should be applied in sufficient quantities to cover all contacting faces and to cause a small quantity to be squeezed out at the boundaries to form sealing fillets. Where special compounds are used for particular purposes, example to seal pressure cabins or integral fuel tanks, they should be used to insulate dissimilar metal in addition to forming a seal. Note: unsatisfactory results will be obtained if inhibiting jointing compounds are kept in open containers which allow the compound to become semi-dry before application. The trouble can be avoided if the compound is supplied in squeeze tubes from which it can be directly applied to the joint. Now 4.4.7 Metal parts in contact with the wood should be treated with the prescribed compound before assembly in order to prevent corrosion due to moisture in the wood. Now 4.5 Protective treatments. Metal surface in bracket on the other than stainless steels and unalloyed titanium bracket close should never be left unprotected after cleaning or repair. Where practicable, the original protective treatment should be restored. In other cases, alternative treatment suitable for application during maintenance work may be authorized. General information on the corrosion proofing and finishing of aircraft is given in the leaflet which I have made a video for this, which I will make a video for this, which details of some of the particles. Protective treatments are given in the series which I have mentioned and specification DTD 900, 903 and 904, 905, 909 and 911, DEF STAN 03-2 and 03-7 BS 7 and BS 2569 part 1 and 2, BS 4921 and specification DEF 151.